Hello, everybody. Welcome to a breaking news, not quite emergency pod edition of Hawkblogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser, here today with Jeff Simmons at Real Jeff Simmons on Twitter. Make sure you give him a follow if you have not already. And there's news, Mr. Jeff. There is news coming out of Miami. Drew Rosenhaus says that Connor Williams is in contract negotiations with the Seahawks and that he expects Williams to sign a deal within the next 48 to 72 hours. We also just got news as of half an hour ago. Adam Schefter tweeted that free agent offensive lineman Connor Williams visited the Ravens today. This is the first time we are hearing of him visiting someone else. Don't like it. He is said to be considering both the Ravens and the Seahawks proposals right now and should, quote, make a decision soon. How do you feel about this news, Jeff?
It makes me uneasy for sure. The Ravens are not a team I love negotiating against. If you're an outside player who I don't know if they know the ins and outs and you have a Super Bowl contender in the Seahawks, it makes me a little uneasy that the Ravens are in there. Once I calm down a little bit, and obviously with offensive linemen, I'm trying not to get excited for the Seahawks. They always disappoint on that front. I'm wondering a couple things. The fact that Schefter is doing it this way makes me think that they're negotiating publicly to get Seattle to pay more money. And the timing of it is really interesting. We've already talked about Rosenhaus's sound. Yesterday, we talked about it when me and you were on 2 days ago, when we were on our Saturday show. Brady Henderson said that it was not the injury, it was money that was the holdup. So the fact that it's been negotiated very publicly through Schefter, which is Schefter's go-to is usually the agents, it makes me think that they're just saying, Seattle, we want more money. Or else, and from Rosenhaus's perspective, he played this great. Because my initial thought was, okay, Baltimore's got an all-pro center, Tyler Linderbaum. He really broke out last year. He had one of the best years of anyone on their offensive line. Why would a guy who played so well at center have to go and learn how to play left guard again? He did play left guard in Dallas a lot of the time. However, when I was looking this up, Linderbaum has been banged up in camp in Baltimore. They've been having to move guards around, and they've been a little uneasy. So the whole thing is still possible where they may want to use him at center if Linderbaum's hurt a bit and then shift him over to guard later. But Williams really did have a breakout season moving to Miami last year. So if he wants to play center, and that's really important to him, then I think Seattle is the destination, and they're just using Baltimore to get more money out of them. So that's kind of where my head is spinning right now. I'm worried about anytime it's like someone versus Baltimore, that makes me nervous. But at the end of the day, if he really wants to play center and that's what's important to really get the value back up, Seattle is absolutely the place to go because I don't know if you heard Mike McDonald on with Brock and Salk today. Did not sound like he's thrilled about the interior offensive lineman so far. He's saying he wants one of these guys to really take this position by the horns. I know Corbin Smith has been saying he gets the impression from his source that this is going to be a done deal from Seattle. But if he really does want to play center, I think he's just negotiating publicly with the Seahawks.
Yeah, I think that is the typical excellent analysis from Jeff Simmons. That's why you are the best in the biz at this stuff. And I didn't love seeing the Ravens piece for the same reasons. If you're a player who's prioritizing winning a ring, then there's no doubt the Ravens are a better place to go if you're wanting to win a ring. If for whatever reason he's an East Coast guy, he did play for the Dolphins last year. Maybe he wants to stay on the East Coast. That's also something. But he visited the Seahawks first. And I can't imagine that coming to Seattle when he came here was a bad visit. It's been gorgeous every day other than when the national media was here. But that was not the day Connor Williams was here. It sounded like things were going well. We heard at that point that they were already in negotiations with the Seahawks. So there's a lot of reasons to think this is a little bit of gamesmanship. I then look a little closer, Jeff. The Ravens have 5.4 million in cap space right now.
Yeah.
So they have half the cap space the Seahawks do. We've talked about, oh, well, maybe the Seahawks need more cap room, with practice squad and injuries and all this stuff. I mean, the Ravens have half the cap space, so they'd have to free up some space in order to make this work. So more than likely, they'd be talking about less money to play a position that I could not find the source, but I'm pretty sure I saw this earlier that Connor Williams wants to play center. He prefers to play center. And if that's the case, to your point, the Seahawks are the ones offering that. The other team that I want to throw into the mix here, and I'm going to play the Rosenhaus sound for you and everyone else to listen to, so you can hear exactly what Rosenhaus said earlier today. But before I do that, the other team that has been at least part of the conversation, not from Rosenhaus, but just as rumor, has been the San Francisco 49ers. And the 49ers have a ton of cap space this year because of a lot of things that they've done. They have no cap space next year, but if they're a team that's interested, they have the potential to be someone that can throw some money his direction. And their offensive lines has been a disaster. So I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities. Center's certainly a position that they could use an upgrade at. They could basically use an upgrade at every position that's not left tackle. And I have this absolute conspiracy theory, just trying to cover all the bases concern. There's been increased rumors that Brandon Ayuk's going to be traded, which I'm all for. Let's be very clear. But if he gets traded, does that increase the odds? Is the timing of this at all coincidental that they could then feel like there's money that they could have freed up that they would have otherwise had to spend, that they could throw some money into this at the last minute? Feels like probably not, but I just wanted to throw that out there as something else that's running through my crazy brain.
It's probably a reach. They need to get this Ayuk thing resolved. It's slowing down their entire camp. But another thing, the Trent Williams thing is they have to pay him money, and he's legitimately holding out. He wants more money. So I don't think there's room to probably add in another free agent contract unless they got him to take like a cheap 1-year deal, play for a contender. But I think that would be a pretty big stretch. Right now, a lot of their focus is resolving the Ayuk thing. And until that thing gets resolved, they can't really make a move on Williams because they don't really know their budget situation. So it's been holding up their whole camp. So a lot of dominoes would have to fall into effect for that to work. And I get the sense just even hearing how the Jordan Brooks negotiation worked out with Seattle and learning more about that, I don't get the sense that San Francisco is going to be able to pull that off with all these balls hanging in their court. And if all of a sudden Trent Williams signs tonight and Ayuk gets traded, I would certainly get a little nervous. Yeah. But I think priority 1 and 2 are just huge on their plate right now. They can't function without Trent Williams. And that's not resolved until the Ayuk thing gets resolved. And Connor Williams to them has to be a pretty low priority relative to Seattle and Baltimore, who does have some injury issues, and they lost both their guards in free agency. It's hard to see San Francisco getting in there.
Yeah, let's save some time at the end to talk about some of the Ayuk rumors. I think they're less credible, but let's touch on those. I know it's your favorite topic. Before we finish, but there's a couple super chats I want to get to. One of your Canadian brethren, Danny McCormick, who's a YouTube member as well. Welcome, Danny. He says Connor Williams wants to play center. He won't do that in Baltimore. I think that's right. Like as you said about Linderbaum. I mean, they did lose their starting guards, John Simpson and Kevin Zeitler. And the guys that they have slated, Andrew Voorhees, who was basically a redshirt rookie last year, didn't play after injury. And Daniel Falele, if I'm pronouncing that right. It's a pretty questionable guard group. So I can see why they would want to bring in a Pro Bowl level guard. But I have some questions about fit in terms of what Connor Williams wants to do and about the money that they could offer. We have one more super chat here from Smokehawk. Also a YouTube member, Drew Rosenhaus needed leverage. Seattle is the first option. I think that's right. I think that since the beginning, Jeff, the first tweet Schefter sent out a week or two ago was, in negotiation with the Seahawks, other teams, will be in the mix. He's been kind of using this tactic from the outset. And so I think that makes sense to me. Let me play the sound for you in case you and others haven't heard it. This is Drew Rosenhaus on the Joe Rose show in Miami earlier today, talking about Connor Williams. And here you go.
To great players. You're right. So I got to ask you, Connor Williams, flipping over here, I thought a deal was going to get done. I know we caught you in Seattle, and I was like, Oh boy, is Connor, is he healthy, and is he close to signing with somebody?
Yeah, he is healthy. He absolutely is. He's in negotiations with the Seahawks, and there's a few other teams, and I wouldn't be surprised if Connor signs within the next 48 to 72 hours. It's a wonderful development for Connor, who had a heartbreaking injury in the Titans Monday night game. He was on his way to a Pro Bowl season and a lucrative contract extension, tore his ACL, and this guy fought so hard, we weren't even sure if he was going to play this year, and now he's going to be ready to play in the first game of the season. It's probably, in my career, without a doubt, one of the greatest comebacks I've ever seen.
Yeah, man, I think we all felt bad when he got hurt because you're right. He saw that money going out, but he worked his butt off and get right back in league. He's still a young guy. So the one that really got me.
So that was the sound about Connor Williams. What did you think about that from Drew Rosenhaus, Jeff?
I understand why people hire Drew Rosenhaus. He's amazing at his job. It's the same thing I was saying before. The whole thing kind of has felt since the beginning that he's kind of trying to up the Seattle offer and trying to use any tactic he get. And it was very telling that Brady Henderson came out on Saturday and tweeted that that was the issue. And from an agent standpoint, he's doing exactly what he needs to do to drum up more money, to use other teams as leverage, to make the Seahawks sweat it out. And I think exactly, if you're looking at the depth charts in the NFL right now and you're like, where's their need at center? And you're Drew Rosenhaus and you see Oluwatimi and Nick Harris, the Seahawks got to be the big target on the year. So he's doing everything he can to try to yank the chains of the Seahawks. And the Baltimore thing has kind of fell right into his lap with some injuries there. So he's doing a great job just kind of creating a market for his client. But the way he used the words and the way he's kind of said this is going to be done quickly, it kind of felt like Seattle, pay me more money or you could lose this guy.
Yeah. I mean, if the Ravens, he was announced that he made the Ravens visit. So he did go there. I wonder why it took so long between the Seahawks visit and the Ravens visit. Normally, once a guy goes on one visit, it's like a chain of events. You go on the next visit and the next visit until you finally sign. It's been like 2 weeks almost since he visited the Seahawks. So I don't know. Maybe Rosenhaus was busy with the Tyreek Hill deal that he was working on. Maybe it was something else, but it does feel like the Seahawks have this as an option. And I'll tell you what, Jeff. Well, actually, let me ask you. Do you want the Seahawks to just pay him what they need to secure this guy? Is he that kind of player to you? Are they in that kind of situation where this is a guy you just wanted to pay him?
Yeah, I am. It's not the most logical, head smart approach to it, but yeah, I'm there. I was really hoping Oluwatimi would be like, okay, take a step forward this year. He's been in the system. They know him from Michigan. It seems like he kind of projects, and just hearing your practice reports and then hearing McDonald on with Brock and Salk today, where it's just like, and then I saw someone else, I think it was Bob Condata, saying that or I think it was Brady actually, that Nick Harris is kind of closing the gap. I said from before, if Nick Harris wins the center job, this is a bad offseason at center. And listen, we've been clamoring about the center position for years. I don't want to talk about the 2021 draft. Last year, and watching Hard Knocks, there was a scene in Hard Knocks where Saquon Barkley is talking to some of the Giants scouts, and they're talking about how they think John Michael Schmitz is going to take a huge jump this year. And the Seahawks drafted Zach Charbonnet, who's a backup running back. I think that was I like Charbonnet. I think that was a mistake not to take Schmitz there. They've been chasing this position for a long time. Olatimi, to me, 5th-round pick, seems like a pretty good backup center. Like, he'd be a pretty steady backup center. You can come in. He's not going to screw you over. But I want a stud at this spot. And I'm at the level where I like what I hear from Charles Cross, left guard, right guard. Makes me a little uneasy. Their best potentially offensive lineman, Abe Lucas, might start on PUP. We don't know his situation. He hasn't practiced yet. Anything you can do to stabilize another spot on this offensive line, to me, I'd pay whatever it takes to get him. Not how John will approach it, but for my side, offensive line is just such important development in the long-term stability of this franchise. If I can get Connor Williams, I take the chance.
I'm the same way. Got a question from one of our YouTube members here, Forrest Luke. Says, do we think he will be on a 1-year deal or 2, or is 3 years even realistic? Jeff, I mean, I think it would make sense for the Seahawks to try to get a multi-year deal.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense for Connor Williams to get a 1-year deal. Is that how you see it?
That's exactly how I see it. If I'm the Seahawks, I want to not have this problem next year and not go into the draft, not go into the offseason wondering who my center is, like we've done really since Justin Britt. And from Williams' perspective, coming off an injury, missing camp, coming in a situation, you kind of want to see if you're healthy. And if you come back and you play really well, a multi-year deal coming off an ACL doesn't make any sense. You want to maximize on another really good season and try to cash in. So a multi-year deal would be fantastic for the Seahawks if they can lock in this position. And if that's what they need to do to get him, then go ahead and get him. But if I'm Drew Rosenhaus, I want a 1-year deal. I want him to play really, really well this year, and then I want to hit the market next year healthy.
Yeah, this is one of those things where it's situations where it's, get the guy, get him in the building, pay him the money. You have a need, you have a fit. He's young enough that if this works out, he could be a multi-year guy for you. He could be part of building up that offensive line where, to be totally honest, Jeff, let's take a second and just imagine. Let's imagine the best case, because that's fun, right? Let's imagine that Drew Rosenhaus is being serious, that he's ready to start week 1, that he's had an amazing recovery. Let's say that he's also playing somewhere similar to the level he's been playing for the rest of his career prior to injuries. And let's assume, like Charles Cross has made the step that I've seen and others have seen this camp. You've stabilized left guard. Laken Tomlinson is fine. He's not like the best player in the world, but he's fine. And then you've got George Fant at right tackle, Abe Lucas eventually. And then you got a nice little competition at right guard with, McClendon Curtis, hopefully eventually, and Christian Haynes and Anthony Bradford. You've got, other than Laken Tomlinson, you've got a very young, largely controllable, above average offensive line. I think you all of a sudden go from one of the worst offensive lines in football to an above average. I'm not going to say it'd be one of the best. I don't think that's true yet. But, Jeff, I think Connor Williams, if healthy and playing at his normal level, would be the best offensive lineman the Seahawks have added in the last 15 years. I think he's better than Dwayne Brown at his position, at the age that Dwayne Brown was.
Yeah, and we saw the impact that Dwayne Brown had during that kind of window. And I think this could be a similar kind of spot. And I think you're not off base. Like, even just adding like Mike Iupati had a pretty big impact, just stabilizing. And that was the end of his career. He would only play well for like 6 to 8 games, and then his age would start to show. But yeah, like Charles Cross. And I was listening to Daniel Jeremiah on the weekend. He was talking about what you need to be a Super Bowl contender. And one of the things on his list is you need 2 cornerstone offensive linemen to be like a legitimate, sustainable. And if Cross becomes the player that sounds really optimistic on Cross. I don't know if he's a cornerstone yet, but it seems like he's going to take a step forward this year. And then you add Connor Williams with the potential of Abe Lucas and we don't know what Christian Haynes is at this point. I don't know if he's like a cornerstone player, but he could be a stable guy. This is the look of a pretty good group moving forward now. And you're right. They just haven't added anyone for years. We just be like, please add a guard, please add a center, please add a guard. And it's just been guys, really. It's been guys, some turnstiles, some just okay guys. But no one's really been where they've graded 88 on PFF or graded in the high 80s on PFF. We haven't seen anyone. And you question PFF all you want, and I do. But if you don't look at every position, they still have the best players at basically every spot. So you're right. Like, really, since Steve Hutchinson, like, there hasn't been – Dwayne Brown would be the only comparison. But I just think for what they have to do what they want to do, it's going to be hard to draft 3 guys, left guard, center, right guard. To get one right now, I think would be massive for this program.
Yeah, it would just be nice. It would be nice to have a legitimate blue chip player, and I think that's what he is. And oh my gosh, sorry, I'm reacting because I saw that Jamarco Jones, speaking of offensive line, was doing a tryout for the 49ers, and I was like, Jamarco Jones, and Ray Roberts just responded, Jamarco Jones was a victim of, quote, let's have him play all 5 positions that handcuffed his development. Was a good prospect, but you become very average trying to be okay at all spots. Could have been a decent guard if that's all he was asked to do. Ray's been checking me on offensive line. It's fun. So I guess the expectation now is that we're going to find out in the next couple of days. And we'll do another show when that happens and break down what happens from there. But how much does this change? Let's assume it happens, Jeff. How much does this change the Seahawks prospects this year?
Pretty big deal. We've said this whole thing. No position impacts their ceiling and floor more than the offensive line. And by far, unless you think inside linebacker, but interior O-line is a pretty black mark on this roster. Years of mismanagement. If Connor Williams could come in and play, and we heard Rosenhaus talk, you obviously got to put a little bit of a agent talk on there, but if he has had this incredible recovery and he's at the level he was at before, just stabilizing that center spot, I think will have a huge impact on both the run game, the pass game. Everyone's been at camp from the national side is just raving about Kenneth Walker and Paul Muller's view of Kenneth Walker. I think it'd have a huge impact there. I think it'd have huge impact on, I think, again, if Geno Smith gets protection, we've talked about the difference in his play, and we talked about how different of a player he was. And he did get a lot better last year in the second half, making plays on the move. But when Geno's protected and running this Ryan Grubb creative offense, I just think it has the chance to make this team into an offensive top 10 to top 5 offense if they can get good offensive line play. And right now, I see no path to great offensive line play, but adding in Connor Williams, that takes a big step in that direction.
Do you think, how do you think that the Seahawks offensive line would rank within the NFC West if they added him?
I think it vaults up to the second best one. I think the Rams right now project pretty well. I think the Rams they got 3 guys injured, though. A lot of them are week to week, but the Niners offensive line is not good. It cost them a lot of potential games last year. Trent Williams is not even practicing. He'll probably be there for the season. I don't think the Cardinals offensive line projects anything. So I think it'd be pretty clearly has the potential to be second. And again, Charles Cross taking a step forward. The reports on him in camp have been excellent. McDonald seemed really, really happy with him. I know Albert Breer. I know a lot of the media have talked about this. So if you can combine him stepping forward and becoming like an next tier of player with a stability at center, and hopefully, I'm hoping that Christian Haynes starts to lap Anthony Bradford the next month. And I think he's going to. I don't get the sense that they're thrilled with what they've seen from Bradford. That could be a couple different upgrades. And I think George Fant, some people were worried about him. I think he'll be fine. I think he can hold the fort until Abe Lucas gets there. So, yeah, I think there's a lot. But I think he is the domino, Connor Williams at center, which is why I'm so eager about this, that can really unlock their potential just to be even a solid offensive line.
Forrest has another question about if Connor Williams gets signed this week, would he see the field during preseason? My assumption, Jeff, is He will not. I don't think
I
he'll
would be
play.
shocked.
I think he would just be getting in shape and getting to know the offense. And I do want to just take 1 second just to check us. I don't see any situation where they decide to play him at guard and keep Olu and Nick Harris at center. Do you?
No, I think if Olu was playing well or the reports were really good, I would think that's possible. And my initial thought when they brought him in for the visits, like maybe they want him at left guard and Tomlinson's not working out. But did you hear McDonald on with Brock and Salk today? And they asked him about the interior offensive line.
Yeah.
I think his answer was pretty telling. It didn't, and the reports, and then Brady Henderson tweeted this afternoon, like, Timmy's kind of losing steam in the center competition. He's been banged up. Nick Harris has been having better reps lately, even though it sounds like he's been pancaked a couple times. There's just such a clear spot. It's like we need someone to take. And then Harris could be a backup guard. He could be a swing player on the roster. I think Oluwatimi would be a much more logical backup center where he can come in, be a solid pass protector. Not great in the run game, but totally fine as a backup center. We were really hoping that I don't see a situation unless there's an injury that reshuffles everything. I don't see any reason to play him at guard. Yeah. And then McDonald came out and said they're looking at him as a center. No.
Yes, he did. That's why it seems very clear to me, but just was kind of double checking my own thought there. We have a super chat from Detail Oriented, another member, and appreciate the support. He says, Brian, I heard that Williams had visited the Ravens today. Could this put a monkey wrench in the possible deal? Have you heard anything more? I'm worried. Yeah, so we talked about this at the outset, Detail, and appreciate the super chat. He did have a visit, according to Adam Schefter, with the Ravens. If he's with the Ravens, it almost certainly would be to play guard. From what we understand, Connor Williams prefers center, and also, sorry. He says, sorry, I missed it. Do not apologize. There's other people that are in the same boat. So let's do a recap. I think the expectation is that what's going on is that Drew Rosenhaus is utilizing the Ravens to negotiate with the Seahawks and try to get more money out of them. And that realistically, it seems like the best bet is that he's still going to end up in Seattle. But it's a hope because the Ravens are an East Coast team. The Ravens are a Super Bowl contender. They've got some things the Seahawks don't, but they also have half the cap space that the Seahawks do. So I think this works out for the Seahawks in the end, hopefully. Really quickly, I'll give you a rundown. People were wondering about Connor Williams. So Connor Williams has been a player that played for the Cowboys as a guard primarily. He is played for the Dolphins last year as a center and was the second highest graded center in the NFL, at least by PFF last year, 86.5 grade, 90.5 run block grade. Absolute monster in terms of blocking downfield. And so that's a big deal. Good pass blocker as well. As a guard in Dallas, he was also highly rated, 76 grade guard for Dallas. But, he's just a guy that is, he was a certain Pro Bowl player for the Dolphins last season before the injury. And, has, I think, and realize that that's his best position, and it's part of why we expect him to be somebody that stays there. All right. Oh my gosh, we got a new member, which is my favorite thing. Kyle Flanders, welcome to the crew. Thank you so much for joining. We are, I think, probably 10 people away, maybe even less, from having 50 new folks join so that I will go on the road to cover the Seahawks in New England for all of you. So really, really happy to have you, Kyle. Thank you for joining, and hopefully more people will join. You can also join at patreon.com/hawkblogger, where all the audio versions of our pods are, and they're ad-free and audio equalized and all that good stuff. All right, I'm going to let Jeff Simmons go. Appreciate all of you for tuning in. And if anything breaks, otherwise, we will talk more about it. The last thing I will say, let's talk a little bit about the Brandon Ayuk news. I think it's not, quote, really news yet. There was a report that Brandon Ayuk that a deal had been made with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this was a report by a guy named, Cam Marino. Cam Marino has 8,000 followers. It does say he's formerly of USA Today. I don't think it's that credible of a report. There has been a report yesterday. Matt Mayako from the NBC Bay Area, who is a credible reporter, said that a trade does seem increasingly likely. So there is some validity to that. Jordan Schultz came out about an hour ago, said there is no trade currently in place for Brandon Ayuk with the Steelers. I'm told the 49ers have had discussions in recent days regarding a potential Ayuk trade with several teams, but as of this post, nothing is finalized. So there is more smoke that this Ayuk deal may happen, and maybe increasingly likely that it will happen. But it has not happened yet. There is no deal, according to, I think, the most credible of sources that we've got to refer to. But things are kind of moving in that direction. And if that happens, we will obviously come back, share that news, and talk about the implications for the Seahawks as well. As a Seahawks fan, what I want to see is I want to see him to go to Pittsburgh. Why do I want to see him go to Pittsburgh? Because almost certainly they will get back draft picks from whatever team they're trading Ayuk to. Pittsburgh has had a winning record pretty much every season, or maybe every season that Mike Tomlin's been the coach. So the draft picks that they get back would likely be lower, less valuable. If you're talking about the Patriots, which is another team that's likely be able to do it, their draft picks could be top 5 of whatever round they get. So I would rather it not be the Patriots. The other team that's been recently in conversation, the Browns, that would be okay as well. I think the Browns likely will be at least middle of the road, if not a playoff contending team as they were a year ago. So I think we want to stay away from New England as a destination because of the draft compensation. Washington seems to be quiet, but I think still remains a logical place for them to go. And Washington's an interesting one. I mean, I'm kind of bullish on the Commanders this year. I wouldn't be surprised if they outperform expectations, but relative to like Pittsburgh, I think, Washington likely will have a worse record and better picks. Oh my gosh, we got another new member, Jim Jones. I love the alliteration. And Jim Jones is now a member of the channel. It's so great to have you, Jim. Congrats. I got to have some sort of like celebratory confetti that I get to play whenever this happens. Really, really happy. Really appreciate the support. And we are getting closer and closer, single digits away from having enough new members that I will go on the road to cover the Seahawks in New England on the second week this season. So really, really appreciate that. Welcome, Jim, and everybody else. All the other people in the crew, the family, are welcoming you as well. So great to have you. All right, folks, I think I'm going to drop it there. That's pod number 3 already today. And if there's something else that happens, I will come back and we'll do pod number 4 because that's just how it goes. So I appreciate all of you. I will be writing up my camp notes. If you haven't already gone to hawkblogger.com, checked out my other write-ups, please do. I think you'll appreciate some of the detail in there, some of the background stories. But I will write that up. Also, if you are a club level or higher YouTube member, you already have access to a Mike Morris interview that I posted. Go check it out. You will smile. It's a fun listen. Mike's a great guy. He's easy to cheer for. I think he's going to be a big part of your team. So club level or higher, you can immediately go and watch that. For everybody else, it'll be available later tonight. But for now, YouTube members, club level and higher, get immediate access. So go check that out. Appreciate all that you guys are doing to support the show. And hopefully you're enjoying all the coverage because it's a fun time to be a Seahawks fan. All right, everybody, I am out for now. Please give the show a like and click subscribe. click the bell to get notified, because that's the only way you'll know when I go live. With whatever news happens, I will go live. I am Brian Nemhauser, and this has been a special edition of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care, y'all.